All right, I am recording. I don't usually make this style of content. I've actually been pretty lazy with my YouTube lately. Do like a lot of gaming stuff, but it doesn't tickle my fancy as much. It's a lot of footage to go through and scrub through, in order to make a video. But I don't really have anybody to talk to about this in real life. Because just life happens, and I found myself going down the Berserk rabbit hole, and it's something that always kind of like caught my eye, and I knew it was a successful series, but it always seemed to be kind of like off the beaten path a little bit, you know what I mean? And I had seen, but Netflix has, like, they did a newer series with it in 2016, and there was a couple of the films out on Netflix, and I think I watched briefly a little bit of the 2016 show, but they had that dumb CGI kind of style thing that they did where they're doing all this shit with these new animes. I don't know if it's a budget thing because it's just cheaper to do it that way, but it looks horrendous, and clearly I'm not the only one that thinks that, because there's a lot of people that are just completely against that style. I mean, it just doesn't look good, right? It's like, spend the extra money, have a successful series instead of something that's just like going down the tubes, right? But I recently had a trip coming up. I wanted something new, I wanted something different. I had watched one of the, what is it called, the Golden Age movies on Netflix, and again, it was like kind of off in the background, and now I'd peer up and I'd look, and it was a lot of hyper violence and guts and blood and weird shit going on, and I'd look up though and I'd casually like glance, and it'd just be like one of those things where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, like these weird fight scene, like medieval fight scene, big monsters and all that stuff, but no idea what the fuck is going on, and no connection to these characters, no emotional anything to it, right? And so it was just more of like I was just watching it on the side and kind of being like, oh, like that looks gross and cool, but I no emotional connection with it, right? To which now I know what the fuck I was watching, and I'm sad. I have feelings. I'm invested, and it's fucking with me. And it's been fucking with me the last couple of days after I got done. I had a flight back from visiting some family, and I, on this flight, probably churned through 8 to 9 volumes of the manga, listening to Guts' theme on repeat. I had like a playlist of different variations of that song, and I didn't think I could listen to that song so much. That's the other thing, like, I'd seen like Berserk memes, passing around and hearing that song with and people like getting sad and stuff, and sad music, and a picture of a guy crying, and almost like, man, like people really, people are into this, right? So I finally started diving down the rabbit holes. Like, I'm gonna have, so I downloaded the 1997 version of the anime that I was gonna start watching, which I've watched a decent amount of that, but I also started reading the manga. And let's set the tone appropriately here. Oh yeah, that feels good. Feels good. Are we ready to go? So I'm doing my best. This is gonna be heavy spoilers. I'm not. I mean, the shit's been out forever, right? If you're watching this and you like are curious about Berserk and you want no spoilers, I'll give you this before you should turn off the video, right? Don't do what I did and just like look at it from the side and be like, oh yeah, maybe it's like, if you're into this, if you're into dark, gritty fantasy that'll fuck with you, I fucks with this heavy, all right? Where am I pointing? Here. I fucks with this heavy, all right? This fucking guy right here, it's a ride, all right? and I haven't even gotten halfway through it. I'm on volume 15, I believe, right now. And you know, I'll probably edit in some, you know, random things based off what I'm talking about, but dude, where to even start, right? First of all, just the artwork is gorgeous. It's wonderfully illustrated. It really is. Some of the panels, and I'm not a big manga guy. I'm not even necessarily a huge anime person. Like, I used to watch a lot more of it when I was younger, but I'm very picky nowadays. You know, I watched a handful of shows that I thought were really good, that really kept my interest, and then they decided to get canceled, or they went on too long, right? And the story kind of fell apart. And one of the shows that I enjoyed, that I'm now realizing is heavily influenced by Berserk, was called Claymore, right? And it has a very similar premise, very similar characters, similar setting and stuff like that. And, you know, I watched the show, and I should read the manga for that as well, but it kind of just ends. And now I'm like looking back at it and realizing, oh, well, shit, dude, it was just Berserk pretty much, with maybe not as well of a thought out plot, or, you know, but it's still enjoyable. I really liked that style, and so I'm really happy that I found this series because it is so good. I gotta hold on for the song real fast. It's just making me think. So, you know, I'm gonna just kind of go through the plot and like things I've thought about it, and you know, how it kind of attached to me. You know, so you got this main character that he shows up. It's referred to as the Black Swordsman. He starts off, he's banging some demon lady. She goes, I got you. He, you know, he stabs her apart. He goes into a bar. He saves Puck. He goes up to, you know, he sees prisoners and women and children being in a cage. You end up finding out that the mayor of the town is helping out this bandit lord, and he's feeding the women and the children to this guy, and he's like this really creepy looking dude with his teeth all, you know, chopped up, and the guy flicks an ear at him. That was kind of funny. It does have there is a dark sense of humor throughout the series. I've tended to notice. And one thing that I really like, especially even just that beginning guy, is the design of armor. The armor in this looks always fucking sick, and it's always different, and it's always that guy, I call him Cobra Commander. He's got this sick like Cobra headgear, and this like the level of design on the armor, and I'll probably, you know, find some examples and throw it up, but like the character design throughout is just so well thought out, so well detailed, and the level of detail, the amount of effort that goes into every single panel really blows my mind, and to a point where I feel guilty sometimes when I'm scanning through a page and I'm just, give me the juice, give me the story, right? And then I'm like looking and I'm like slow it down and like appreciate how much time and effort he spent on just like sometimes the smallest panel, and it'll be some battlefield laid out or just a castle that he's drawn out and sketched. One thing that I found that was really interesting about, what's his name, Kentaro, were his artistic influences. He was influenced by MC Escher, and a handful of other artists, and there was another guy, his name escapes me right now. You could find the names on the Wikipedia, they have them listed, but there was a woodburn artist that, or not woodburn artist, wood engraved artist that did a lot of work for Bibles and the, what's that called? Dante's Inferno, or and Paradiso. And I remember I'd always seen that artwork before, and I always loved it. I was like, man, that shit looks so cool. I love the line work. It's like really sketched. It looks really aggressive and stuff. A lot of heavy, dark, you know, very shading heavy, right? Where it's more dark than it is light, and then the light kind of emerges out of that, how much dark that is. So I could see how that appealed to him in his art style, and you see that a lot in these panels and in the artwork and stuff, where there's a lot of times where things are more dark than they are light on the pages and stuff, and it really makes the parts that are lighter colored really pop, you know. So, you know, as we start getting into the depths of the story, the beginning of the story, we start, you know, finding out that this guy is haunted a little bit, and he immediately goes to try to confront this Cobra Commander guy. He's hiding in a bunch of corpses. He shoots out the arrows and stuff. The guy goes, you can't kill me. It's kind of like this weird immortal being, and, you know, and he emerges and he's this giant monster, and everybody else around him is freaking the fuck out. Like, don't, you know, whoa, what's going on? I didn't know he was a monster this whole time. And Guts is very unaffected by this, proceeds to fight with him. And one thing I noticed too, that is they really humanize Guts and his fighting prowess, in that he's not afraid to have his characters get hurt and have his characters really show damage and show that these fights are not easy, right? And then luckily for him, he's got Puck, and Puck has these like magical healing abilities that can kind of, I think, probably count a little bit as plot armor, you know, to kind of subside the fact that he's essentially getting mortally wounded, broken bones, people are getting stabbed and stuff like that, you know. And then they introduce this idea of the brand on his neck and the brand bleeding, right? So that fight happens. You kind of get introduced that he's like this kind of monster hunter guy. Then it cuts to the next character, which is the like Slug King, a guy, I guess you'd want to say. And they say, oh, things changed 7 years ago. He hasn't been the same since. He finds the dude with his face all cut up and his arms and legs torn off. There's these brutal panels where you see like the guy, and he's the king, and he's cutting up bodies in the basement, and then he's got this guy hanging upside down, and he's watching his own wife being consumed in front of him, and he's like pulling intestines out of her, and he fakes his own death, you know. And Guts has got this attitude of just, if you're weak and you die around me, good, and fuck you, like, get fucked, right? I don't care. Because, you know, and at first you're just like, you take that as like, well, he's a little sociopathic, he's a little psychopathic. Like, how much of a positive figure is this guy when he's like, you know, that's his mindset approaching just about fucking everything, right? And it makes sense the later you get into the story, right? Yeah. Anyways, you know, no, I don't want to explain every detail, because you probably know where I'm going, you know. He ends up fighting the guy. Oh yeah, there was the knight that he fights that he had beaten previously that gets infected by the demon, and it's got, he chops the dude's fucking head off, and then the slug thing pops up out of his head, and it stares at him, and it's like, hey, what's up, bud? Like, ugh, it's so gross the way it's drawn. It's just the detail on it, the visceral detail on it is just so disgusting. And then I think he proceeds to chop the slug demon's head off, right? So, you know, he goes and confronts this guy, and then you start hearing things about apostles, and he has the brand of sacrifice on his neck, and he has all these things, you know. There's more to the story going on here. And then he had his daughter stored away in some room. She comes and emerges. She finds out her father is this big demon thing. He freaks out. He loses the fight to Guts after Guts, you know, blasts him with the old hand cannon, which is another thing I found really strange, because I did get a lot of Evil Dead vibes and Ash vibes while reading this. And then listening to an interview with Kentaro, he talks about how when he was in college, when he made the very first Berserk volume, he had put it out and it got published, and he was excited, but then after he published it, he went and saw Evil Dead 2, and he was like, oh man, my character is very similar to this guy. He's, you know, instead of a big sword, he's got a shotgun, he's got a chainsaw arm, and he actually thought he was going to be sued. So I actually thought Evil Dead maybe influenced Berserk, but it's kind of one of those apparently coincidental things that they just happen to be coming out around similar times, or it had been out, he had just never seen it. And then he said even worse was Evil Dead 3, when he ends up actually getting the metallic arm and stuff. But they are very similar, you know, in those regards. I'm gonna turn this down a tad. So anyways, you know, he's fighting this big demon guy. The demon guy's losing, and then he calls out to the God hand, and the whole dimension changes, and then you can really see the MC Escher influence in that exact moment, because there's these the staircase world appears, right? The demon world appears, and it's every up is down and the left is right, so everything stops, eternity, nothing makes sense, right? And they're pulled into this demon world. Guts is mortally wounded at this point, and you see this guy emerge, and I really like Griffith drawn as the dark being, and his armor. I like Griffith's armor set in general. I know I'm supposed to hate Griffith, and I probably will begin to hate him even more than I do currently. But I might end up making something, because I saw someone said in defense of Griffith, a video about that. I want to watch that eventually. I'm trying to keep the spoilers away, as much as possible. But there is like there's something about him for sure, right? And then the character design and the armor design. I love the armor design for Griffith, right? So then you see him, he's like, Guts is yelling at Griffith. You don't know who the fuck Griffith is. And then Griffith is just dismissing him. And he's just like, whatever, he's petty. The other God Hand are going, ooh, he could be a good one. We could really use him. And then he's like, what? Griffith's like, whatever, we're not having it, right? So very confused, right, at this moment. Because you're like, what's happening? Who are these guys? I had seen the brain guy. I think his name was Void, the Void Angel. I had seen pictures of him. I had seen all that stuff before. So again, I've seen a lot of Berserk stuff over the years, but I just, I never knew what it was. I never knew what it was referencing. So then, they narrowly escape the demon dimension. They pull themselves out. I can't specifically remember how exactly they get out of that scenario. The Slug King, they offer him and say, you need to sacrifice your daughter in order to be resurrected, or otherwise you're going to be pulled into the void. So there's this vortex of demons and ghosts, and he can't make up his mind fast enough because he won't sacrifice his daughter. But they implement this idea to become a demon, right? Is it has to be your choice. It is of your free will, right? And that it's about sacrificing your humanity. And the more you sacrifice your humanity, the closer to a demon you become. And I really love a lot of the themes that Kentaro puts in this series. And it really blows my mind sometimes, knowing how young he was developing these ideas. First of all, how talented he was at the age that he was, even as a youth. I believe his first graphic novel he was doing when he was around 12. And you're thinking like, oh, cool, it's like a project like a kid was doing. Apparently it sold and stuff. And then you go and you find panels of that original comic, and you're just like, he was doing this when he was 12, You're like, okay, prodigy. Like, he was clearly insanely talented at a very young age, and it only progressed into his adulthood, right? And but he's very smart in how he lays ideas out, puts them out through characters, through storytelling. And like something as simple as that, like the idea of like, well, demons are people, and they're people that have sacrificed the things that they love the most, the things that have made them the most emotional, in order to gain power, right? And thus they are no longer human, because they've gotten rid of the things in their life that are it's like essentially like maybe like attachments, right? But also something that the demon world would want. There's like something about emotions and emotionally charged sacrifices that are needed. So you can't, because he goes, well, why don't you just kill Guts? He's our enemy, right? We need to fucking kill him. And they go, we don't care about him. And he's already been branded, right? So he's already supposed to be sacrificed. So they kind of right there kind of lay the groundwork for the idea that he shouldn't be alive, right? Guts, that is. So, the demon, the Slug King gets pulled away by the wayside, and the guy that had his nose and his legs chopped off, he's at the lead of the pack, and he's grabbing him and pulling him, and there's a big no, you know, he gets pulled into the vortex, right? And then we get into the real, you know, start tugging at the heartstrings kind of stuff, right? Because then we start to learn about Guts in his youth, and you really see the callousness of Guts, because he's really seen the worst of it. Because when they get out of the demon realm, he looks to the princess character, and she is distraught, and she's traumatized about what she just witnessed and stuff. And Puck is like wanting to, like, you know, give her a pat on the shoulder, give her a pat on the back, and she's like, he's like, hey, are you alive? She's like, yeah. And then she's like, oh, I just want to, she goes to kill herself. She goes to pull out a knife and cut her wrists, and he goes, here you go. And he throws her a knife. He's like, go ahead, do it. And they're like, yeah, you're so boy. And he's just like, listen, if she wants to live, she wants to live. If you don't want to die right here, be my guest. You know, basically saying, like, I have no sympathy for you. I have no sympathy for somebody that wants to take themselves out of this world based off of the life that has clearly he's lived, you know, up to that point in the series. You don't know that yet, but like, there's a reason why he's so unempathetic about these things. And you know, it comes off as cold, but you know, now that I'm as deep as I am, it makes more sense. So we find out, you know, so he's what they refer to as a corpse child. So Guts was born from a dead body. I'm sure they might tie this in later on with something, but you don't know his parents, you don't know his mother. They don't even show the mother, but there's a tree of intestines spilled out everywhere, and a troop of mercenaries are going by, and they see a baby on the ground that's supposedly dead, right? And as they walk by it, it starts murmuring, it starts, you know, making sounds. They go, holy shit, that thing's fucking alive. I can't believe that thing's alive. Came out of a, I think they said like a corpse mother or something like that. Well, the leader of the troop, his name is Gambino. The leader of the troop, his wife had a miscarriage 2 weeks prior to that. So she goes and she takes little baby Guts and takes him in. Gambino doesn't want it to happen, but she's set. She grabs the kid and grabs the baby. So you're already set this precedent that the character that is going to become his father figure does not want him, does not want to be associated with him, and that he's a bad omen, and that he's bad luck, right? So this is the origin of this character, is that he is like born from death, right? Death is the beginning of this character's life, as poetic as that sounds. That's right. That's the beginning of this character, is from a dead body, right? He shouldn't have lived. She's by against all odds, which becomes the theme for the character, right, through the series. And I think about 5 or 6 years progress. The mom dies of plague. Everybody still regards Guts as a bad luck charm. Gambino blames Guts for the death of his wife. He's training Guts how to fight with a sword. He's picking on him. I mean, the other guys in the troop are saying, like, man, take it easy on the kid. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, you know, and they're like, your sword's too big, Guts. And they're just like, we don't have baby swords around here anyways, right? And Guts obviously shows that he wants to try, right? And so he's already kind of in this relationship of where, this abusive relationship, and where all he wants is approval from this father figure, and the father figure does not care about him really in any way. He does, but he doesn't. He's kind of doing it almost out of like a begrudging sense of, you know, that's probably an interesting thing to analyze, is the relationship between Gambino and Guts, because they don't really go super far into Gambino as a character, and you hate him so much, but he never wanted Guts. I'm gonna start already, dude. Almost start fucking welling up. He never wanted Guts, and he blames the kid for bringing the plague, because he knew he was a bad omen the moment they found him, and he doesn't want him around. So, you know, he's training him into sword fighting. I think around 11 or 12, he starts putting him in actual battles. He almost fucks up. He hands Gambino a spear when he asks for it a little too late, but he ends up getting the kill. You know, and Gambino kind of slaps him and beats him and goes, you know, this is war, son. You better be on point. This ain't no joke. You're going to get yourself fucking killed and you're going to get me killed. Like, you know. So, gets his first payday. Gambino takes all the money, feeds him a coin. But Guts gets a smile on his face, because he's proven that to his father he's worthy of something. He's providing him with something, right? Even though he's essentially getting robbed by his father figure, and that doesn't matter, because he's not fighting for gold. He's fighting for love and attention, right, from this character, and that he's proven himself in combat. So this progresses for a little bit, and then we get into a real gnarly scene. Very disturbing, but a much larger, much older soldier comes in, and when I mean large, I'm talking like 300, 400 pound guy comes in while Guts is sleeping. This is another characteristic about Guts, is he always sleeps with his sword, because the sword is the only thing that he can find comfort in from an early age. It's the only thing that's been with him, protects him, right? So it becomes symbolic for him in that sense. But, you know, to put it bluntly, the man comes in and rapes him against his will, and clearly states that his what does he say? Your father sold your ass out, I believe is what he states at him. And he holds him against his will, and no, real shit happens. And it's fucked up. It's just super fucked up. There's no way to state it. I mean, it was one of those, like, I think I had watched a little bit of the anime past that point, and so when I was reading the manga and I was catching myself up to the anime, I was like, whoa, that wasn't there. And I, you know, I had to like swing my head away, and it's like I'm like, all right, he fucking did it. These goddamn, I don't know what it is with Japanese authors, filmmakers, their relation with sex culture and violence and stuff. Like, they're willing to go there a lot. You know, I grew up watching like Ichi the Killer, you know, Battle Royale, those kind of films, those kind of animes. Shamo, you know, Shamo had a very similar scene in the very beginning. So, you know, I don't know what it is with them willing to go there with their characters, like, so fast and aggressive, because it wasn't even like hiding it. It was blatant. I mean, it was just very blunt, in your face, drawn, you know, to detail, like, right, hard to look at. And also, you know, you can really just the harrowing picture of the scene, and then also to know that your own father figure sold you out in that regard, and just saw you as something that he could just make a quick buck off by pimping you out as a child. It's fucking so bad, dude. Ugh. So cut past that. We'll move on. He gets his revenge, because they in one of the next battles, Guts sees that guy off in the distance, and he pegs him in the back with an arrow and kills his ass. It comes up, I believe he like stabs him in the face or something like that. He's got like a cheeky one-liner that he says at him. I think he says something like, sold your ass out, huh? And then he like stabs him. And when he had approached his father the morning after, his father acted like he didn't know anything. He just pretended he didn't know. So maybe he thought maybe that guy was lying, and it wasn't his dad that sold him out in that regard. Later on, Gambino gets injured. He loses a fucking leg, right? Becomes a drunk alcoholic. Guts keeps fighting. Guts and kills a general, military general. And he comes back and he's like, Papa, I'm so proud. Look what I did. I killed one of the generals and I got a fat bag of loot. And instead his dad smacks him and says, bring the meat for the fucking dog. I don't give a fuck. And he goes, but I killed the general. And he smacks him again. And he goes, bring me the fucking meat. It's what I told you. So then he gets really sad, right? Because it's like, what can I there's nothing I can do. It's I'm always a fuck up. I'm always, you know, a loser to this guy. So a couple soldiers are murmuring something about Gambino. He hears it off the side. That sets him off. He gets up on his crutch. He starts trucking over. He comes over to Guts' room while he's sleeping, pulls a sword on him, starts yelling about how he's the reason his wife's dead, and he always knew he was a bad omen and he should have been dead, and that's why he put him in all these battles, and he was expecting him to be dead years and years ago, and somehow he keeps living and he keeps surviving, he keeps living, he keeps surviving. And Guts starts crying, and Gambino slashes at him, and I believe he cuts his nose. Maybe the nose cut was from earlier. I believe maybe that was from a combat practice, but he slashes at him and cuts him, right? And in an act of self-defense, Guts pulls out his sword and ends up stabbing Gambino through the mouth. Ugh. Right? Very brutal, very nasty. And he falls over and he dies. Hold on, I need a break. This is gonna be a long one. How far? We're already 30 minutes in. Jesus Christ. So, you know, he kills him. He kills him. And the other soldiers come in. And they immediately just blame him. He tries to explain to them, like, he came in, he was drunk, he attacked me. They just don't even want to hear it. They go, you killed your own father. Even though despite that they saw him the whole time getting abused by this guy. So he jumps on a horse and he runs away. And as he's running away, he gets shot with an arrow. And he falls on this cliffside. And they go, he's dead. There's no way he's gonna live through that. And it cuts to him, and they have these cathartic moments, and I believe there's gonna be an association with it later, because I read a quote that was something related to the moon. But there's always these moments where it's, you know, God's staring at space, staring at the moon. And he's staring there, and he's dying on the floor of this, like, ravine, or the cliffside, right? And I love the way Kentaro draws out these nightscapes. He makes these very, I don't know, just the way he does it, the way he approaches it. It's just a lot of dots, but he's really good at making space. And Guts kind of gives up. He kind of like says to himself, like, this is it, like, I'm dead, right? And then there's like some force that, like, he just gets up and he's bleeding and he's cathartic and he's dying and it's cold outside and he's just dragging the sword through this empty field, and there's the space and the moon above him, you know, and it's like very much this like death march. And he, you know, you put it in perspective, like, he's like 13, you know, 13, 14, maybe even just like 12. He's like super young, right? And as he's walking through, wolves start popping up. And you know, he like lazily like goes to bite him, and he kind of just puts his sword up, you know, he's not even trying. And it runs itself, it kind of spikes itself on his sword, and it drops, and they all start kind of gathering around. And I think he kind of gets a little bit of adrenaline, and he freaks out, and he starts screaming, and he starts slashing all these wolves up. And I'm trying to remember exactly what happens here, but he kills all these wolves and then like passes out. And I believe like a carriage comes and grabs him and finds him, and they go, oh, this poor boy, like how he killed all these wolves by himself. And they don't really go into that side too much, because from what I remember, it kind of just goes from that, like, he got saved, and then it kind of just cuts to him being like, I don't know how old he's supposed to be in the beginning of this. Maybe I want to say that he's like 18, 19, 20, in that range, right? And he's fighting for a mercenary group. There's a big giant bear guy that he fights, slashes him in half really easy, but he does it in a really risky way. No one wants to fight this big giant guy, and he shows up. He's got an obnoxiously big sword, and he really just wails him, right? He cracks the dude's axe, and then kind of comes in, hits him in the body, loses his helmet, and they, you know, comment on like how suicidal his fighting style is. He has no concern for his physical well-being. And everybody's impressed, right? And then there's these characters overlooking him, impressed by what they just saw. The king goes to pay him, and he, like, you know, the king goes to touch his shoulder, and he hits him off and says, "Fuck off, don't ever touch me." Right? And you're like, whoa, hey, you know, why is he like that? And you're like, we know why he's like that. You would be like that too, right? And makes me sad. Fights the guy, gets the money, goes and takes off. Bandits are overlooking him. They all decide we're going to attack, and this is where we get introduced to Griffith and Casca, right? And I can't remember the name of the other guy. The guy that hates him. The guy that hates his guts. They all go to jump him. And Casca says, don't fucking do it. He's going to murder your ass. Even if he's injured. He's stronger than all of you, right? They go and try. Doesn't work. Griffith says, Casca, go take care of it. She comes down. They fight. Knocks it off. There's a slow motion. Oh, she's a woman. They start fighting. Casca's getting overpowered. She's impressed by how strong and fast he is. Realizes she's about to die. Griffith comes in, saves the day. Beats him in one stroke. Stabs him under the armor. He falls, and then we get into this scene where they pull him back to the camp, and Guts has these like nightmares of him killing Gambino. He's always screaming out to Gambino in his sleep, and he's always asking for forgiveness. And then he has, you know, fever dreams of him being raped and killing his father. And it's this thing where it's like, you know, how do you understand a character that has, you know, there's just like this thing with like abusive relationships and like the psychology of abusive relationships, and that despite how terrible of a person Gambino is and was to Guts, he still psychologically deep down has a longing for him, for forgiveness for what he did, despite all the things that Gambino did to him, you know. And it's just like so harrowing. And then he feels somebody touching him, and he freaks out in his sleep that, oh, don't touch me, oh, don't touch me, don't touch me. And then he realizes it's this gentle touch, and it's a feminine touch, and he relaxes for some reason. And he's the first time he's felt relaxed being touched by another person probably in his whole life, it seems like. And when he wakes up, he comes out of his tent, and Casca comes and runs up and punches him. And he goes, ah, you know, what was that about? And they go, she was commanded to lay with you for 3 days because of your blood loss. You got so cold. And she's the only woman in the whole encampment. And Griffith told her, and she'll do anything Griffith asks, right? So he goes, okay, weird. So Griffith, I think, wants to talk with him. They go on a nice walk, go on a nice little jaunt there. They go up to a hillside, and Griffith starts going, I want you. And Griffith, you know, is a very pretty boy. You know, one would say even a very girly looking boy, right? Nice long hair, you know, gorgeous face, tall, slender. Man, he's a catch, right? I gotta lighten the mood. Sorry. To the point where Griffith goes, he uses the F word. You know, I don't want to offend anybody, but to put it bluntly, he goes, "Are you gay?" You know, because he's like, "I want you." What do you mean you want me? You know, I want you in the Hawks. I want you in the band of the Hawks. That's my group. We're cool. The band of the Hawks. He goes, I don't want to join. I don't give a fuck. So he progresses, right? They start talking, and you know, Guts starts yelling at him like, you don't know me. You don't know anything fucking about me, and you want me to come and join you? And Casca is getting very upset over the fact that Griffith is asking this of him, because it's very out of character for him, apparently. you don't know this at this point, but it's like Griffith is like a magnet. He's a very charismatic leader. He's very good at what he does. And people want to be around him, and people want to help him, and people want to see his goals achieved. And he doesn't ask for anybody. People just appear based off of their own choices, based off just being in his circle of influence, right? That's the kind of charisma he has, the aura that he has. And Guts doesn't care, you know? And Casca can't understand what it is about Guts that Griffith likes so much, or that Griffith is attracted to. And I don't know, you know, if I'm sitting here and I try to think about it, the similarities between Guts and Griffith, and I'm sure they're going to go a little bit more. They already went a little bit into Griffith's backstory in the later volumes, where they showed him when he's a little kid and he gets the behelit, I believe that's how you pronounce it, the egg of the king on his necklace. He gets it from the trader. They show him when he's a young boy living in the castle town, and he's clearly had kind of leadership. So they don't have similar backgrounds. And maybe it's this thing of where Griffith's all about finesse and tactics and strategy and smoothness and everything working out just right and as planned. And Guts is like the opposite. Guts is all heart and desire and rage and emotion and sacrificial and willing to do whatever it takes to accomplish his goal. I might have to cut this video down. This is getting long. To accomplish his goals and push forward, you know. And yeah, there's a lot going on between the dynamics between both of those characters, you know. And so, you know, they start fighting at each other, and you know, Griffith's kind of getting the upper hand, and he ends up jumping on Guts' sword as he swings on him, talks some shit. And Guts has this line about, you know what a mouth's, you know, you like talking shit, but a mouth's no good in battle. I'll show you what a mouth's good for in a fight. And he ends up biting on Griffith's sword and bleeding out of his teeth and stuff like that, and he grabs him and pulls him and yanks him up off the sword, and they go tumbling over the side of the hill. And now everybody's shocked because they've never seen Griffith be put in a position where he's on the wrong side of a fight. And as they're tumbling, you know, Guts gets to him and grabs him, and he goes, "I bet you no one's hit this pretty face before," and, you know, socks him and gives him a nice one across the jaw. And Griffith kind of starts laughing, but he's like he's getting beat up. And then Griffith throws him down in a little okizeme, little judo arm lock there, pins him to the floor. And then they had stated right before the fight that if Guts wins, he kills Griffith and he gets to leave. If Griffith wins, Guts becomes his. He gets to do whatever he wants with him. That was the agreement. And so Griffith breaks Guts' arm because he won't give up. And then he has this very, like, you know, sensual, grabs Guts by the face, and he's like, "You're mine now, and I own you, and I will choose where you die." And he has this very, like, okay. But there's like a level of respect, you know, almost immediately, because he's going like, man, like, this guy beats me. No one beats me in combat, but this guy, he's something different, right? And so he lines himself up for their first battle, and they end up putting Guts to the rear to protect his cavalry. And everybody's concerned, and they go, either he's testing him out, or maybe he's gonna get Guts killed. Casca thinks differently. She goes, "This isn't right." He trusts him. Like, he sees something. He wouldn't do that intentionally. And so she's already concerned about Griffith. And why is she trusting this dude? you know, out of nowhere, right, to be in like a very like important decision, or in an important position to defend the flank, you know, as they go through this like raid in enemy territory. And Guts kills it, right? Nobody dies as a result of Guts serving up the rear. And because of that, there's a big party thrown in celebration for Guts. And then again, they cut to this ominous, like he's sitting there by himself with a sword and he's looking at the moon. You get introduced to Ricket and Pippin, and they come up in judo, and they come up and they go, Guts, we're having a party for you. You're the hero. And he goes, what are you talking about? You know? And he goes, what do you think about the Hawks? And he kind of, he's like, I don't know what to think, because there's something definitely different going on here. Most mercenary groups are filled with greedy assholes that really don't give a fuck about anything. He's like, but you guys have a real sense of camaraderie, and there's something else going on here. And they explain, I believe it's Ricket or it's Judo explains that it's Griffith, and that it's Griffith's charisma, and that he has a belief in something. And they ask him, what does he believe in? And he goes, everything. And I'm not sure if there's different translations of that exact quote, but it's just this, you know, it kind of turns into this theme of the ambition of Griffith, and the ambition of men, and the ambition of women in dreams, and people in dreams being followed. Yeah. So anyways, you know, Pippin comes and grabs Guts, and you get introduced to Pippin, and Pippin's a fan favorite, and Guts is punching him in the face and all this stuff, and ends up handing him a beer. And there was a line, I think, through that dialogue, and where they go, what are you looking for, Guts? And he's like, I don't know. And they go, well, for right now you're with us, so, you know, but we hope you find it somewhere. We hope find that thing you're looking for. And for the first time in Guts' life, he gets friendship. He gets people that show him like the slightest bit of affection, you know? And knowing what you know about that character leading up to it, man, and then what happens after, it's like, just, you know, it's like a character designed to, like, it's like, what would a character look like who never caught a break? Or like, what would be a break to somebody like a character like this? Because right now, like, this is the break. The break is that he killed a bunch of people in battle, and then, like, people are willing to have a drink with him and, like, consider him to be like a comrade, you know? And it's like, it's still just so set in violence, and it's so set in, you know, a negative kind of thing. But there's like this positivity, and like the band of brothers and the band of warriors, you know, achieving something. And then, you know, after that it cuts to, you know, him meeting with Griffith, and they have a nice little hanging with the boys Top Gun scene, where they start throwing, Griffith's naked for some reason, taking a bath, and they start throwing buckets of water at each other. And then you get to see the Behelit for the first time, and it freaks Guts out. He sees it, he doesn't like it. But then Griffith kind of starts explaining to him his ambitions, starts saying that he's gonna have his own kingdom, and he goes, that's impossible, you know, this kind of stuff. He's kind of going through it in his head. But as Griffith starts explaining it, he starts talking about it, and he's seeing his leadership skills and his ability with tactics and how impressed he was with him. And he kind of decides right then and there that he reveres Griffith, and he wants to learn from him, and he wants to help him achieve his goals, and that he would die for Griffith's dream, because he doesn't have a dream. He doesn't have that sense, and that all that makes sense to Guts is swinging his sword. And in fact, it's brought up commonly as a theme that the only time life ever makes sense to him is when he can shut his brain off from swinging his sword around, and that everything else in his life makes no sense. But knowing what you know about the character, what else is supposed to fucking make sense? He has no education. He has no, I mean, it's literally just been getting beaten, getting talked down upon, fighting in battles, no social skills, no, I mean, just the groups of people that he was around his entire life, no one to care for him, whether he's alive or he's dead. He's literally only had the sword. It's the only thing that's kept him alive. It's the only thing that's ever been there consistently for him. You know, so as I'm breaking all this stuff down, and I know this is really kind of turned into a synopsis, but it's because it's just, I'm trying to mold this stuff over, you know, and think of my consensus. I might just come back and do another part 2 of this. I didn't think it was going to take me this long, but I think I want to cover just the plot and then how I feel about it, because now you get the sense of he gets this ambition from Griffith, and he's looking at him and he goes, you know, I want to be a part of this guy's life and what he's about. And then they proceed to, you know, go off and start winning all these battles, and they escalate these battles, and then they start to gain renown, and Griffith starts becoming a well-known leader in these band of troops, and they start fighting for all of these different areas, and they end up starting to fight for this big king, right? I think I'm gonna cover the rest of it at another time, depending on if I get, you know, an okay response from this, because I would love to keep talking about this, but I think it's I'm being a little long-winded because I don't really have any clear and concise thoughts. But as you can tell, I really enjoy this story. It gets worse, it gets gnarlier. I think that maybe covered volumes 1 through 7, because we're about to start getting into the golden arc stuff. So right now I'm only at volume 15. I'm gonna be reading more throughout the weeks, right, trying to catch up to everything. That way I can really avoid spoilers and stuff. But yeah, it's very sad. It's a very harrowing story, you know, and I'm very happy that I started reading it, as sad as it makes me, because there's a lot of motivational stuff in it. There's a lot of deep, good writing, great art, great illustrations, great character arcs, just all types of like stuff out of it that really makes other things you know, null in comparison. That, you know, you just kind of go like, you see all these other multi-million-dollar projects and big shows and stuff, and you're kind of just like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Because like this was a work of art. He spent his whole life making it. R.I.P. Kentaro. You know, you know, there's a reason why it's as infamous as it is, you know, and I could only hope other artists and other creators look up to somebody like him and what he is able to achieve, and that, you know, it's quality over quantity. And I'd much rather have 40 volumes of an amazing fucking story than 600 episodes of whatever with, you know, 200 good episodes and 400 filler episodes. Like, you know, that's just me, but there's a lot to be said, I think, about current media and storytelling and people's ideas of what a good story is, and what, you know, because I'm very picky. I don't get drawn into stuff often, so when I do, I get excited because I'm like, fuck, finally, like something that's like, you know, making me I'm feeling something about this and these characters, and it's all fiction, but, you know, there's a lot of good parallels with you know, your own life, and there's a lot of good, you know, motivational aspects to this story, and about friendship and betrayal and relationships and ambitions of people, and sadness and fighting through, you know, despite the odds. There's all types of that stuff going on through here. So it is a really, you know, it follows this hero's journey method, but in such a vicious, disgusting, beautiful way and harrowing way at the same time. So I think I'm gonna end it there. I'll probably do a part 2. Maybe you know, I can mull over a little bit more. I'm probably not even gonna throw any edits in this. Maybe I'll throw a couple pages in throughout, possibly, just so you can kind of like see some things I'm talking about. And then yeah, anyways, I hope you enjoyed. If you're watching up to this point, go ahead and, you know, like the video and comment what you think about it. Do your best to try to avoid any later spoilers in the series for my own person, because I would love to read the comments and be able to respond. But if I start seeing shit that it's like, oh, did you know so and so, you know, it's like, Right, like I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible, which is like, you know, good luck on that because I'm so late on this party. But anyways, I'm happy I got into it. Thanks for listening to me chat about the openings to Berserk and the plot, and let me mull some of my ideas and let me get out of my system because it's just been eating up at me, and I don't have anybody to talk to about this shit. So might as well talk to strangers on the internet and other people that are fond of Berserk, or anybody who's happened to be looking up Berserk reviews in 2022. So anyways, I hope you all have a good day. Thanks for watching, and yeah, ciao.